Good day, everyone. We will be talking about chapter 4. So, the first part A, will be done by Marichris. So, yeah, you can start talking about your part now.
Okay, so for my part, I was asked to review the company's performance in terms of key performance indicators. And so, number one, revenue or sales in the past 3 years of Porsche. Porsche delivered a total of 280,800 automobiles to clients worldwide in its 2019 fiscal year, setting records for sales. Sales revenue increased by 11% to 28.5 billion euros. It's a 10% rise over the same quarter in 2018. The greatest return on sales before special goods in the automobile industry was 15.4%. Porsche generated record earnings of 28.7 billion euros in the fiscal year 2020 despite the COVID-19 epidemic. Its earnings increased in 2020 as well, reaching nearly 4.4 billion euros. More than 272,000 vehicles were supplied to consumers globally in total, a 3% decrease from the company's record-breaking year in 2019. Excluding Germany, Porsche sales in Europe fell by just 4% in 2020 compared to the previous year, whereas in Germany, Porsche's home market had a 17% reduction in sales. Porsche's revenue and operating profit both reached new highs in 2021. According to the business, Porsche's revenue jumped by 15% year over year to 33.1 billion euros. Operating profit increased to 5.3 billion euros the year before. And then Porsche was able to raise its sales revenue, operational profit, and return on sales in the first half of 2022, despite a difficult climate for the whole automotive sector. This year has presented the auto industry with a severe task thus far, with supply challenges making it challenging for automakers to produce automobiles. And then for number two, applicable financial ratios, Porsche has a quick ratio of 1.07, and since this is greater than 1, Porsche has a good liquidity, and the business is healthy and able to cover its liabilities. And then Porsche has a net profit margin of 12.20%. This goes to show that the business has an above average net profit margin. The net profit margin is a measure of profitability, and since Porsche has an above average net profit margin, this means that the business is making a sufficient profit from the sales and its operating costs. Porsche has a debt ratio of 0.55, and then a debt ratio that is lower than 1 or nearly 0 indicates that a company hasn't used debt to fund its operations. It also indicates that the company has more assets than debt. This is considered relatively safe, and a low debt ratio also means that there is financial stability, borrowing capacity, and flexibility. Last is the average asset turnover ratio for the auto manufacturing industry in 2021 is 0.88. Porsche had an asset turnover ratio of 0.64. This goes to show that the business is not performing well in this area since it is below the industry average. This means that the company is not effectively using its assets to produce sales. That's all for my part.
Thank you for that, Marichris. So, for the second part of chapter 4, I'm assigned to it. So, letter B, do an organizational diagnosis using the McKinsey 7S model. So, for this, I made sure to check Mom Zenaida's module where she attached a separate PowerPoint about McKinsey 7S. So I used that as reference, and I also searched online. I used Google to go to know how to go about it. So just a brief explanation of what the McKinsey 7S model is. So the McKinsey 7S model is a change framework based on a company's organizational design. It aims to depict how change leaders can effectively manage organizational change by strategizing around the interactions of 7 key elements: structure, strategy, system, shared values, skill, style, and staff. So for the 7 S's strategy, this is your organization's plan for building and maintaining a competitive advantage over its competitors. Structure, this is how your company is organized, or how departments and teams are structured, including who reports to whom. Next, we have systems, the daily activities and procedures that staff use to get the job done. Shared values, these are the core values of the organization and reflect its general work ethic. They were called superordinate goals when the model was first developed. Next, style, the style of leadership adopted. Staff, the employees and their general capabilities. And lastly, skills, the actual skills and competencies of the organization's employees. So for this part, I've actually inputted some data already. So Porsche uses the McKinsey 7S model to implement effective change management procedures and continuously improve company performance. Porsche concentrates on the 7 components listed in the model to make sure that performance levels are consistently upheld and enhanced for the product. So McKinsey's S model is divided into 2 parts, 2 components, which are the hard elements and the soft elements. So hard elements include strategy, structure, and systems. So for Porsche, I've included some aspects under each category. So for strategy, Porsche is their strategies defined clearly. It directs behavior towards goal achievement. It competes with demands. It has shifting customer preferences, and it is adaptable and flexible. For structure, we have organizational structure, interdisciplinary cooperation, team dynamics within the business, and a combination of centralization and decentralization. For systems, we have existing organizational structures, specific system controls, serving and assessing controls, and internal organizational alignment procedures. For the soft elements, we have shared values. We have key principles, occupational culture, and task and value alignment. Next, we have the skills. So this talks about the employee abilities, employee skills and task specifications, management ability, and competitive advantage of the company. Next, we have style. Style of management or leadership, the success of the chosen leadership approach, internal competition and cooperation, and effective and functional teams. Lastly, we have staff. Goals of the company and employee skill levels, number of personnel, and deficiencies in necessary talents and competencies. So just a few examples for each aspect. So first would be strategy. So all Porsche's workers and stakeholders are informed of the company's strategic direction and overall business plan. As a result, the organization is better able to oversee performance, direct actions, and develop various strategies that are in line with the company's goals. Additionally, Porsche's operations are made more transparent, and the company's duties and actions are in line thanks to the creation and communication of the business plan. The strategic direction for Porsche is crucial in assisting the company in directing stakeholder, employee, and staff behavior toward the pursuit and accomplishment of objectives. According to the company plan, SMART goals are established with short and long-term deadlines. Employees make decisions about strategies and behaviors to accomplish the established goals and targets in order to advance the company's success. Porsche's strategy also considers the demands of competition and rival activity. Next, we have structure. So Porsche has a flat organizational structure that is backed by organizations that are forward-thinking and always learning. The employees feel more comfortable and confident and have greater access to information when there are fewer managerial levels between them and more access to senior management and leadership. Additionally, the flatter hierarchy speeds up decision-making for Porsche and promotes employee engagement to the company. Porsche has excellent cross-departmental coordination. For projects and tasks that involve multiple skills, the company's departments frequently form interdepartmental teams. All collaboration between divisions is efficient and well organized. Porsche has a structured method for initiating and monitoring departmental collaboration to ensure seamless work operations and processes, as well as goal achievement. Porsche promotes collaborative efforts and group projects, and the organization also allocates individual duties and job assignments where jobs call for individualized attention and scope. Next, we have system. So to ensure that business operations are conducted successfully and that there are no conflicts or disputes, Porsche has established clear-cut methods. At Porsche, the systems are primarily departmental in nature and cover, for instance, human resource management, finance, marketing, operations, sales, supply chain management, public relation management, and strategic leadership. At Porsche, each clearly defined system contains controls that were created specifically to assess performance and target attainment. Based on the specific activities and responsibilities of each department, these controls and measures have been developed. Additionally, each division creates unique controls for its employees' performance reviews, as well as for activities and responsibilities that cross departmental boundaries. Next, we have shared values. To build a flexible and encouraging organizational structure that will enable people to perform at their best and heighten their motivation and organizational commitment, Porsche has defined and conveyed its core values. Porsche's key values include, but are not limited to, innovation, integrity, openness, responsibility, trust, quality, and heritage. The Porsche company also makes sure that all of its activities and operations are carried out in accordance with strict moral and ethical principles that are revised and measured against global standards. Porsche promotes a diverse and welcoming workplace environment. Porsche makes sure that its organizational culture is supportive of diversity and has internal procedures to reduce instances of prejudice because the company has a global presence and production facilities that are dispersed across many nations. Porsche's corporate culture also supports innovation and creativity by giving teams and individuals the freedom to develop on their own, which helps people develop both professionally and personally. Next, we have skills. Porsche employs a respectable team that possesses outstanding abilities and talents. All hires are made in accordance with their qualifications and merit. Porsche takes pride in securing top talent and developing them further to support growth and development. Tasks and job positions have been established by Porsche, and personnel are hired and trained based on their skill levels in accordance with those. The business makes sure that all job criteria are satisfied and that personnel are equipped with the necessary abilities to carry out their specific tasks in line with Porsche's culture, values, and business objectives. Next, we have style. Porsche employs participatory leadership. Porsche is able to involve its employees in managerial decisions and decision-making processes by using a participative leadership style. This enables the leadership to regularly engage with the workforce and other managerial groups in order to identify any possible disputes and solicit feedback on operations and strategic initiatives. Porsche is able to improve employee motivation and raise organizational commitment and ownership among both employees and other stakeholders through its participative leadership style. In terms of fulfilling the organization's commercial objectives and vision, the participative leadership style performs exceptionally well. Staff. Porsche employs a suitable number of people across all of its international activities. Depending on the urgency and the skill levels required, employees are employed both within and externally for various job tasks and positions. This indicates that Porsche employs people who have the necessary skills for the positions and work tasks. All staff members receive internal training to help them become acquainted with the business and its core principles. For the purpose of raising skill levels, external training is offered in addition to internal training. The skill level of employees at Porsche is sufficient to meet the company's business objectives because all job functions and positions are created to make it easier to accomplish these goals. Porsche has employed a sizable workforce. Depending on the demands and needs of the activities, the number of personnel varies from nation to nation. In comparison to its rivals, the company is a smaller one. In the previous chapters, in the paper, Porsche has fewer employees compared to its competitors in the high-end luxury car industry. And this would also indicate that other car brands have more factories, warehouses, showrooms, and basically their official locations compared to Porsche. More locations entail more employees to help manage and operate the business, thus having a wider distribution compared to Porsche. So that is all for what I've researched for part B, McKinsey 7S model. So the next part will be C, from the above, identify the company's major strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, so for part C of our trauma, as what Faith has mentioned, we are asked to identify the company's major strengths and weaknesses. So in doing this part, we analyze and identify the strengths and weaknesses from part A and B, which includes the revenue or sales in the past 3 years, the applicable financial ratios, and the McKinsey 7S model. So based on the discussion, strengths refer to the resources, practices, and capabilities of Porsche that can be used by the company to develop a competitive advantage and achieve its objectives. Now I'll be discussing the 7 strengths we have identified. So first, we have growth in revenue. Based on Porsche's sales revenue in the past 3 years, there has been an increase from 2019 to 2021. Next would be the strong profitability. Porsche is producing a sufficient profit from sales as seen by its above average net profit margin. This also implies that its overhead and operating expenses are under control. Porsche's gross margin is higher than the industry average, which indicates that the company's sales are sufficient to cover its costs. Lastly, Porsche's strong return on sales percentage indicates that the company is growing and successfully controlling its operating costs and revenue streams. Third would be good liquidity and leverage ratios. So Porsche's high quick ratio indicates that the company is financially healthy and able to pay its debt obligations. Due to Porsche's low debt ratio, the company is relatively safe from financial risks. Next, we have effective organizational structure. So Porsche's combined and balanced a decentralized and centralized organization, which means that the company is able to promote decision making. At the same time, they are able to ensure that managers are able to supervise and give their approval for the many initiatives and strategies that staff members select. Additionally, the company ensures a systematic communication and flow of information between managers and levels of staff. Next, we have clear systems. So Porsche has clearly defined systems in place. The systems in Porsche are departmental. They have human resource management, finance, marketing, operations, sales, supply chain management, public relation management, and strategic leadership. Next is good corporate culture. So Porsche ensures that there is strong support for diversity. Employees are given the opportunity to grow on their own. There is supportive leadership, participative leadership, internal collaboration and cooperation, and that all jobs and duties reflect the core principles of Porsche. And lastly, we have strong staff skills and expertise. So Porsche ensures that in screening, hiring, and training their employees, it is based on the company's specific and high standards for qualifications and merit. Next, we have weaknesses. So for weaknesses, we look into the areas, elements, or practices that prevent Porsche from achieving their company goals and objectives. This could be areas where they did not perform well or things that are lacking from the business. So now I'll be discussing the 5 weaknesses that we have identified. First, we have asset management. So from the financial ratios data above, Porsche has a low asset turnover ratio. This means that the business is not effectively using its assets to produce sales. So when resources are not being used effectively, this is an indication that the corporation is having internal conflicts. The low asset turnover ratio indicates that the business has a lot of unproductive assets such as inventory, receivables, equipment, and plant for its current sales level. This also suggests that the company holds excess production capacity or has poor inventory management. The second weakness would be unsuccessful product innovation. So although innovation through technology has been a strategy that helped Porsche introduce new and creative ideas, according to recent studies, the technological complexity implemented in their products have affected the quality of their cars. Porsche has continued to introduce automobiles that are progressively and more technologically complex, even though there are several shortages of essential components to sustain them, thus leading to issues on product quality. There have been reported issues on performance, features, and other quality-related concerns. The third weakness would be high maintenance and production costs. So Porsche's strategy focuses on providing high-end luxury cars to the upper class and middle upper class. With that, operating the business requires high costs. Both car maintenance and production incur high costs. Next would be few locations, and few employees. So Porsche has fewer employees compared to its competitors in the high-end luxury car industry. This correlates to the fact that Porsche has fewer locations such as factories, warehouses, showrooms, etc. Having fewer locations and employees would also mean that Porsche has a smaller or lesser distribution. Lastly, for the weaknesses, we have brand inconsistency. So through Porsche's shifting brand image, there has been brand inconsistency. In order to spur expansion, the company deviated from the classic Porsche image and diversified into making SUVs and sedans. And in recent years, the company is taking steps and initiatives to bring back their brand image as a sports car company and increase their fan base for sports cars. That would be all for part C.
Thank you for that, Marian. So part D will be done by Shane. So yes.
Yeah, okay. So I will be discussing what we're going to do with part D. So for part D, we are actually going to use the IFE matrix to evaluate the overall internal strengths and weaknesses of the company, which was based off of part B, the organization diagnosis, and then we analyzed that on part C, and then that's kind of where we got our strengths and weaknesses for the IFE matrix. And so for the IFE matrix, we're actually going to use a table rather, which will contain both strengths, weaknesses, the weight of these strengths and weaknesses, the ratings, and then their overall score. So for the weight, basically we are going to give it 0.0 for not very important, and then 1.0 for very important. And then for rating, we are going to measure that by giving 4 if the response to these strengths and weaknesses are outstanding, and then 3 if it's above average, 2 if it's just average, and then 1 if the response is poor. So as Marian mentioned also in part C, basically the strengths would be the growth in revenue, strong profitability, good liquidity and leverage ratios, effective organizational structure, clear systems, good corporate culture, and strong staff skills and expertise. So what we're going to do there is we are going to give weight to each one of these strengths, and then we're also going to rate them at the same time, by how the company was able to handle these strengths, and then we're going to multiply the weight and the rating to give the total score. And it's the same thing for weaknesses. So for weaknesses, we have asset management, unsuccessful product innovation, high maintenance and production costs, few locations and few employees, and then brand inconsistency. And then again, we're going to give weight to all 5 of these, and then multiply that by the rating, and then that will give off the total score. So I think we're also going to be putting a little bit of explanation just to kind of justify the weight and the ratings that were given to these strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, that's all for my part.
Thanks for that, Shane. So the last part would be letter E, summary and conclusion, which will be done by Clyde.
So the first thing we were tasked to do is to identify major financial and internal strategic issues that the company must address. So for our financial, we have a near average net profit margin. As previously mentioned earlier, Porsche has a net profit margin of 12.20%, which is above the average of 10%. But a company like Porsche, should be able to maximize the profitability and and have a margin closer to 20% rather than a margin closer to 5%, which is the low. And we have a below average asset turnover ratio. Porsche has an asset turnover ratio that is below the industry average, which for a company of their standards should be addressed immediately. As their assets are not turning over enough revenue, Porsche will have less access to funding for their growth and expansion due to the loss of potential profits. And for our internal strategic issues, we have a below average vehicle quality. Porsche failed to match the average of 180 in the initial quality study the company participated in. This is alarming because Porsche's consumers are and target market are individuals who are paying a premium price and expecting nothing but the highest levels of quality in the products they are purchasing. This must be addressed immediately as these issues may force loyal customers to look elsewhere for alternatives that meet their needs. Lastly, we have brand dilution. With the introduction of the Cayenne, Panamera, Macan, and most recently the Taycan, Porsche now has more four-door SUVs and sedans in their product range, rather than in comparison to two-door sports cars. Porsche started as a brand with a distinct image of a two-door sports cars, but they continue to expand their lineup, adding other products. They may start to dilute the said distinct image they were once popularly known for. And aside, next we were tasked to identify key organizational elements that may hinder or promote growth and productivity. So, the organizational element that I identified is strategy. As previously mentioned, Porsche continues to underperform with their net profit margin being near average and asset turnover ratio being below average. This tells us that they are not as profitable as they should be. To address these issues, Porsche may opt to introduce more models such as their most sellable, the Cayenne, in order to make more revenue and in turn more profit. As SUVs require less innovation to produce, in contrast to sports cars, this also indirectly addresses their below average vehicle quality because less innovation and technology would simplify their products and in turn make them more reliable. If Porsche takes this road, however, they may further dilute their brand as they will be known less for their sports cars and more for their other models, which was not the case in the past. This could decrease the cult-like following Porsche has for their sports cars, as their loyal customers may be pushed away with the introduction of more models that are not what they follow the brand for. Moving forward, Porsche must find a balance between strategic issues in order to continue growing without hindering the brand's image. That's all from my part. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that, Clyde. So, based on everything we've said and researched on, I think we're pretty set in like finishing chapter 4 very soon. And also additionally, we're also assigned to report about chapter 4 next meeting. So just a reminder to finish up your assigned slides, add in your pre-recorded video, as I will download the PowerPoint as an MP4 tomorrow before class starts. So yeah, I think that's all for now. Does anyone want to add anything or say anything? If not, then I guess we're done. Thank you for joining this meeting, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.